Okay, this is a Town of Riverhead Industrial Development Agency Board meeting, excuse me, December 7th at 5 p.m. I'll call this to order now. It is 5:08 p.m. and I need a motion to consider the minutes of the last meeting.
Oh,
Motion,
agenda
please.
first, sir.
Hmm?
Agenda first.
Oh, sorry. All right, let's go back. The agenda first. Give me a motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have an agenda. Now, the consideration of the minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Anybody have any comments? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We have a, minutes are done. Correspondence, any?
I have correspondence which will be read in old business, Chairman. And I'd also just like to mention that Bob Kern is here with us, our treasurer, and he is here with us virtually.
Hello, Bob.
Aye.
Looks like a golf course to me.
Creek. Right? It's a creek.
The creek, yeah, okay. All right, let's go on to, the treasurer's report. You okay, Bob?
Okay,
Has he got it?
so the cash in the checking account, People's United Bank, as of October 30th, was $43,179. It's October 30th, do I have the right one?
No?
No.
No, I need the November, 1 second, sorry. Oh, how did I get this one?
If not, I can have Jim do it.
Yeah, can you have Jim do it? It would be
Sure.
easier. Sorry, Jim.
Jim
Okay,
is our assistant treasurer.
this is the November 2020 financial reports, is that what we're reviewing? Bank balance at People's United Bank on November 30th was $8,970.85. Investments, we had a balance at November 30th this year of $95,534.12 in a municipal money market account bearing interest with an annual rate of 0.2%. Revenues on an accrual basis for the month of November 2020, including interest earnings of $6.69. Expenses paid on a cash basis for the month of November 2020 totaled $34,215.60. And the LDC activity, the balance in the LDC account at November 30th, 2020 was $506.23.
It is at the suggestion of the CFO to transfer $50,000 over into the regular operating account.
That was my question, to make sure that she's in on it.
Yes? And by motion and approval of the board. In addition, there's as of today, there's a receivable we're sending out for another $6,900. And we anticipate the closing for 3/31 during the week of the 14th.
Good. Okay,
I'll just
anything
need-
else? Bob or Jim?
Nothing else to report.
So I'll make the motion that we approve the financial report and authorize the transfer of the $50,000 from the money market.
Very good.
Second.
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. It's approved. Treasurer's report is approved. Thank you. And, excuse me. Committee reports. Audit, none. Governance. Lori, I think we have.
Yes, we did. The governance committee met on November 20th. And there were 3 items on the agenda. The first was the compliance report form, which we reviewed with a critical eye towards trying to maintain the collection of the data that we are required to report to New York State, the data that we have been requested to collect from the town board of the town of Riverhead and our own board, and trying to streamline that process and do as much as we could to make it easy and less onerous on our project leaders. And so we are in the process. I know that we set a deadline for November 30th as we shared it with the broader board. Have you received any feedback?
I did get feedback from one of the board members. I believe I answered all the questions.
Yeah.
And I did send it out to someone who's more computer inclined with
Than you?
formatting
Then you were,
than me. And I have not,
clarification,
I'm sorry?
just a clarification.
To try and format it better, to make it look not so onerous. And I haven't gotten that, a draft of that back yet. They were trying to work on it, so, and that's been a couple weeks, so, I mean, it may be as about as good as it's gonna get.
Okay.
But, unless someone got that in their back pocket as a forte to streamline documents, you know, the format of it itself. Other than that, if there was any other questions or feedbacks that they wanted to see on the compliance report, I did stick it in your packet tonight, just in case there need to be another review.
Are we in a position tonight to recommend from the, because the governance...
As far as I'm concerned, yeah, I mean,
Right, okay.
outside of formatting,
Right, exactly. So it was the recommendation of the governance committee to share the form that we discussed with the full board, with the thought that we would recommend to the full board tonight adoption of the new streamlined form. And so we'll do that later on. The second issue...
Let me ask you a question,
Sure.
please. You feel you got enough to do that tonight?
I think that the content is where we want it to be. It'll
Okay.
just be a matter of reformatting, which is, you know, nothing material is going to change. It's just gonna be, you know, we're gonna try to shrink
gonna
it
look
to as
different.
many pages as we can and that kind of thing.
Thanks, Lori, that's a lot of work, considering where we are and where we wanna go. And I appreciate all the input from the committee. So let's go forward when we
Okay.
get there.
Great. The other issue we discussed was the fee schedule. We are continuing to discuss that and also to collect information from other regional IDAs so that we can see what they're charging and how we compare to that, and want to make sure that there's parity there, and that even though we're a smaller agency than many others on the island, that you know, we're keeping pace with our increasing expenses and that type of thing.
I have found in that research so far that some are increasing their fees as well, despite, I know one of the discussions we had during committee was the timing of this during the pandemic and the difficulties with the businesses, but they're also in a position where they are having to raise fees as well, just so
Sure.
you're aware.
It's, you know, and then the third item we discussed were the agency's goals relative to the comprehensive development plan that the town of Riverhead is undertaking. We wanted to make sure that all of the members' concerns, questions, and thoughts with regard to that process were reflected in the discussion that our executive director Tracy had with the consultant that was hired by the town board. So that was also part of that meeting, and that was it.
And I
in
will
terms-
note that I did get feedback from several board members. It was incorporated into collective answers on behalf of the agency. I did actually jot down a draft. I can send it around to the board. I'm sure there'll be additional discussions. The comprehensive development plan is a long process.
Right.
But I incorporated everybody's thoughts and relayed them to the consultants.
Not carry much for paper, I'd still be interested in
Certainly.
getting a copy of that, and I think everybody else would too, on the board. Okay,
And that's the end of the governance committee report.
thanks, Laurie.
Do
Okay.
you want to initiate like a recommendation?
I put it under new business,
Yes.
right?
Kirby.
No finance committee report. So we go on to old business. And Tracy, what do you think? Should we start?
Yeah, so,
John Wesley?
as I noted earlier, we did receive some correspondence which I'd like to read.
Please.
It is from Daniel Dornfeld, who is a partner at Forcelli, Deegan, Tirana? They are counsel for John Wesley Village, and it was regarding an update regarding the straight lease agreement by and between John Wesley Village and the town of Riverhead IDA. Dear Ms. Stark James, please take this letter as an update to the status of the improvements at the property located at 1 Aldergate, Riverhead, New York, known as John Wesley Village, that JWV agreed to make pursuant to the IDA agreement known as the project. As you're aware, the town assessor for the town of Riverhead failed to honor a portion of the IDA agreement as to the timing and implementation of the pilot schedule. As a result, the assessor determined that the property was taxable during the 17-18 and 18-19 tax years and collected $395,000 prorated for the transfer date for 17-18, and an additional $361,000 for 18-19. The payment of these amounts had put great strain on John Wesley Village's ability to complete the project. As you are also aware, pursuant to the order of Honorable Joseph Fornetti dated May 14th, 2020, this assessment was annulled and the assessor's actions were adjudicated to be unlawful. Unfortunately, the amounts paid by John Wesley have yet to be refunded. Despite the fact that the court's decision was rendered in May 2020, the amounts owed have not been paid, and we understand that John Wesley probably will not get paid for another 6 to 8 months still. This has created cash flow issues for John Wesley and prevents it from funding the full scope of work that was agreed to. This is compounded by the fact that the judgment is income and taxable in 2020, even though John Wesley will not receive that money anytime soon. Additionally, so far, John Wesley has accrued legal fees in excess of $76,000. In addition to the town of Riverhead legal fees it will be obligated to pay. Finally, the assessor's actions will likely have long-term ramifications on John Wesley Village. The delay in making the renovations will very likely cost the property substantially when HUD, Housing and Urban Development Corporation, does its rent basis step-up review. It's an inflation adjuster and local market comparison. HUD sets rent adjustments based on market forces and property condition. The new basis is used each year thereafter for a cost of living adjustment. The lower the basis at its next review, which is approximately 18 months from now, is the basis for all future rent adjustments. This means even a modest loss in rent growth at the next review will have a lifetime effect on the site. The interference by the assessor means John Wesley Village did not get its interior work done before the pandemic, and we cannot be sure when it can be completed. Furthermore, John Wesley Village had represented to HUD that the renovations were being performed. The fact that the renovations will not be done when promised will adversely affect John Wesley Village's relationship with HUD. Regardless, John Wesley Village has worked hard to complete a substantial portion of the project and expects to complete everything, albeit over a longer period of time than originally contemplated. Below is the status of the improvements John Wesley agreed to make. Asphalt work. The entire site, with exception of one 30-car parking lot, has been milled in place, repaved, seal-coated, and striped. Concrete work. The addition of handicap accessible ramps has been completed. The replacement of damaged aged areas of concrete walkways have been completed. The number and size of handicap parking spaces has been expanded. The 6 fully handicap accessible apartments have been fully renovated with the exception of gas to electric stove conversion. Medical attention needed pull cord system has been replaced by the wireless pendant system. The electrical upgrade to each individual unit is partially complete. The power supply lines are in place in the attics and can be completed once COVID access restrictions are lifted. The irrigation wells are currently out for bid. The common area solar PV systems are also out for bid. The kitchen cabinets have been ordered and can be installed once restrictions are lifted. In addition to the harm caused to the project by the Town of Riverhead Town Assessor's failure to comply with the IDA agreement, much of the work has been and will be delayed by the COVID pandemic. This is especially problematic because the residents of the project are vulnerable due to their advanced age. We estimate the balance of work can be completed in 6 to 8 months once workers can return to normal access routines. In conclusion, given the assessor has collected $756,000 in funds that it was not entitled to receive, which are substantially in excess of what John Wesley Village was obligated to pay and budgeted to pay, John Wesley Village's ability to complete the project work and pay its pilot have been greatly diminished. We would appreciate any assistance the Town of Riverhead IDA can provide to minimize such impact. We would be happy to discuss this matter in person or remotely with the Town of Riverhead IDA directly. Thank you for your consideration. Daniel Deegan.
Okay, this is a public document, you read it, and that's from, their side of the aisle, if you will. So one thing it seems to me is we have to get somebody who knows what they're talking about to tell us that this is accurate. Did we do that? Is that how HUD works? Well, let's say, sorry, this is yours, you gotta live with it, and so forth. I mean, I'm willing to take this at face value, but
Well, when they,
That's not right.
when they presented their case to the board for, the project, part of their case was that, HUD sents its rent roll, not the amount that the individuals pay, but the amount that HUD pays for the standard of living of the facility based on the condition of the facility. And so part of the, renovation was to upgrade the facility, but to also, with HUD's agreement, make the facility able to support a higher rent. And so what they're saying, which seems to be consistent with what they had presented to the board at their hearings here, is that since they haven't been able to improve the facility because the funds were diverted to pay the tax assessment, they aren't in a position to argue to HUD that their rent should be increased, which is not an increase to the residents, but an increase in the amount that HUD subsidizes the rent. So that portion of it seems to be, correct.
okay, thank you.
The issue of the refund, the judge's order was issued, and, we had a discussion with them about when they thought they'd get the money back, and this is their response to that. So, in the overall picture, the pro rata assessment did not give any extra money to any of the taxing jurisdictions. What it did was it reduced by a very small amount the amount that all other taxpayers paid in that year. So if the school district needed $10 to operate the school, they raised their $10. The additional money that John Wesley paid didn't go to the school, it just reduced the amount that anyone else in the taxing jurisdiction would pay. Conversely, when the money is owed back to them, it's owed by all of us who are taxpayers in the town to pay an increased tax to give the money back, because the school district doesn't get any less money this year because of the improper pro rata. So it's sort of an ironic situation where actually what has happened is, instead of the taxing jurisdictions getting the pilot payment, which would have been additional income to them outside of the tax warrant, they lost that opportunity because our documents say that if you have to pay a tax in excess of what the pilot would have reduced it to, you don't have to pay twice. So another issue before the board today, and we've prepared a resolution for your consideration, is to do as was done last year, to forego the pilot payment this year in recognition that they're out the $790-some thousand plus their statutory interest, and that the $75,000 annual pilot payment is obviously less than that. Now, that raises a concern that when they get the money back, will we be made whole? So we wrote the resolution that when they do get their money back, there will have to be an accounting of exactly how the tax payment correlates to the unpaid pilot payments. And if it's determined that with the interest and any other monies that they receive from the refund, they are shown to have a benefit from not paying the pilot last year and this year, they would owe that to the IDA. The IDA would then divide that among the taxing jurisdictions and distribute it to the taxing jurisdictions within the 30 days that we're required to do that. And I think Tracy had notified the taxing jurisdictions earlier this year that because of the ongoing litigation, it was unlikely that they would receive the pilot payment, so they did not hopefully put in their budget that receipt, which is in question.
So for your consideration.
So I don't know if you have the resolution or.
I'm looking at it, but I
Take a
haven't
moment to
really
read it.
One quick question, Dick. Did money actually change hands here between John Wesley and the town?
Yes.
Well,
John Wesley paid.
So they definitely are down $750,000 in cash terms.
right, they paid the
Tax
tax receiver, the tax, they had to,
Yeah, yeah.
because if they didn't, the penalty on it starts to become outrageous. So yes, they did make the payment, and they brought in action, they brought two actions. The first action was to declare it improper and to prevent it being owed. That wasn't decided in time, it was owed, they paid it, and the second action was to recover it, and the court has determined it to be recovered.
So one of the things we have there is, we have that court determination, but no money.
Right,
They haven't gotten anything back yet, and according to their attorneys, it appears like that'll be way down the road.
well,
It
right,
looks- it's
it,
awful.
the money has to be levied back upon the taxpayers to make the refund. So it's not unusual for it to take a period of time.
It's that line item on the
Yeah,
tax
right.
bill.
It comes out of the,
I
real
forgot what they
property,
call it now.
real property tax law, section such and
Correct.
such, on the tax bill is where the monies are raised to pay for this type of a refund.
So I have a question, Dick.
Oh, that's Bob.
Yes, so my question is this, so I know the town just passed their budget. Was this determination made by the judge prior to the town passing their budget, so they were unaware of this?
The money,
The judgment was in May, right?
right, but the judgment, is in the county tax levied in the town of Riverhead. So I don't think
Okay.
it would affect their budget particularly.
Understood.
So the money is, the refund is not coming from the general fund, it's coming out of the next tax warrant?
Correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we authorize notification to John Wesley Village, regarding the pilot payment for 1920.
Second.
I didn't understand it, run that by me again, please.
I'm just making a motion to
Oh,
approve this resolution that,
So numbered, I think it will be number 51, correct? I think.
So, John, whereas John Wesley Village LP has received and owes a property tax payment, has received and owes.
We could change that to has paid.
Yeah. I think
good.
That's an example of using last year's resolution to solve this year's problem, which I realize also in the haste to accomplish that, pilot, in the title, it should be for 2020/2021.
Yeah,
okay, yeah. So basically, what the resolution is doing is allowing them to not make the pilot payment for 2021.
Correct.
And then when they receive their refund, an accounting will be made, and that is the time at which they'll make the pilot payment for this year and last.
To the extent that
That it's,
they're not paying duplicitly.
right,
See where it gets a little bit, back to the special district taxes?
right. They did pay.
In that big number are parking district, water district, sewer district, ambulance district, bid,
Lighting,
you know,
right?
lighting.
Highway,
Well, lighting and highway come into the town
Town,
portion, even though
okay.
they're broken out in the tax bill, but those amounts aren't affected by the pilot, so we're gonna have to, it's gonna take a little bit of accounting effort to figure out what of it,
Gets
is
charged.
duplicitous and what of it is not,
right,
and then what they would owe back to the taxing jurisdictions.
right.
I mean, from their standpoint, as the letter explains, it presents a close to $800,000 tax bill.
compared to 75.
It is extreme. I mean, there are 112 units there, something like that,
Yes.
102.
116 maybe?
But I mean, if you just think about
Take
the
100.
magnitude of, that's close to
Yeah.
$8,000 a unit for a subsidized senior housing project. It's way,
For wanting to put themselves on the tax roll.
Right.
Oh,
We're doing a
This,
good job.
You can't
this has
make
really
this
turned
stuff
out to be one heck of a predicament. And most of the predicament seems to be in John Wesley Village. It's just incredible.
So Dick, I have another question. Is this something, I mean, we should submit to the town clerk? It just seems like this shouldn't live and die between us and John Wesley and the courts. I mean, the town board should be aware of this, no?
Yes,
that's a policy decision for the board.
yeah, we'll be taking care of that through our
Has the,
liaison.
has the town acknowledged the judgment?
They're certainly aware of it, it's been discussed.
What I mean to say is that had they written back to John Wesley and say, we agree with the judgment and we're sorry it's gonna take 8 months to pay you, but we're gonna pay you?
That's not
That's not the town's
the way,
jurisdiction.
that's not the
Well,
town's.
but what I mean to say is, I'm just trying to figure out whether or not,
It's our understanding that the time to appeal is passed and there is no appeal going to be mounted.
I just wanna, it
So
seems
that,
to me.
I don't mean to be weak about the answer, but that's the
No,
the level
I'm
of.
just curious whether or not John Wesley had basically a piece of paper he could bank on.
Yes, I think they're,
'Cause I
I
got
think
HUD
the judgment
coming,
is,
I've got HUD coming, so I'd just like to go down to People's United or whatever and say, I've got X coming in, I don't know when, call the town assessor, but in the meantime, extend me some credit so I get all this stuff done, so I get my HUD rents up, so.
right, that, whether they should have or could have gone for financing on an interim basis, we could ask them that, sure.
we're looking into some,
Yeah.
some options. They contacted me and I don't know if they contacted you. but we're discussing some options.
Would you consider, the Honorable Joseph Fernetti to be out of the picture? We still have a bill out there that they haven't paid.
Well, he's made a decision that that the assessment was incorrect. And that's the end of his role, subject to an appeal, and there is not going to be an appeal. So
Okay.
I think he's done with his task.
I have one question, also. I'm just wondering if it's appropriate, that we put our council fees within this resolution, or is it not appropriate because it's strictly relative to the pilot?
Just relative to the pilot.
Okay.
Figures.
Well,
Any other questions, any other thoughts? Any other remedies that you wanna talk about? Potential remedies?
All we can do.
so, Chairman, you have one motion on the floor by Lori Pipchinsky.
Yeah, let's go back to that.
I don't think we got a second.
No, you did not get a
No.
second.
I'll second.
All right, we got a second.
With that change, right?
Yes.
2021
2021 and paid.
in the title.
Mm-hmm.
Any
As
discussion?
amended.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of this resolution?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Hopefully, we won't have to deal with this ever again.
I would agree.
Certainly hope not. Okay, can we move on? Thank you for the work. Thank you for this resolution. Thank you all for your comments. All right, so now we're, on to new business. And we'll start with consideration of project termination PMG number 29.
I'm gonna let Dick, discuss this.
Thank you.
So there are two resolutions here dealing with the Peconic Management Group facility on Ostrander Avenue. Frank Yakubowski is the attorney for the applicant, and he's advised that the facility is being sold to another group of doctors. And there's 1 year left in the second project
Phase
pilot
two.
schedule, which is a 5% reduction.
Deferment, right.
Which would be included in the 2021 pilot payment.
Correct.
And so they haven't scheduled a closing yet, but they have a signed contract of sale, and they have the purchasers, and they're working toward a closing. And one of the issues would be to the purchaser whether they would qualify, and they've had discussions with Tracy, and I've had discussions with Mr. Yakubowski, and it's clear that they're a doctor's office, but there's nothing that would make it unique of a facility unavailable in the ordinary course to residents of the town of Riverhead, whereas the Peconic Management Group facility was,
Center of Excellence for Pulmonary Care, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
which was not available in the community. So, they wouldn't qualify. So that they need to clear these of record in their title for the purchasers. And, so that's the proposal. In the agreement, mindful of the pro rata problem, eventually I do learn these things. Mindful of the pro rata problem, Mr. Yakubowski has had discussions with the assessors, and I believe they've worked out how that's going to be handled, but our pilot will be paid, and that's what we're concerned with, and that's stated in the agreement. So, they'll pay their pilot, the pro rata will be determined, a credit will be given for the pilot payment, and if the pro rata is asserted, it will be asserted on that basis.
When you say it's in the agreement, you're talking about in the termination agreement?
Correct.
And so this is the project that, is it the big project on Roanoke
Yeah.
Avenue and also the one on Ostrander? or-
There were two projects on Ostrander. There was the first if you remember, there
Phase
was
one and phase two.
there was a house that was kind of dilapidated.
On Ostrander or Roanoke?
On
No, Roanoke.
oh, I said Ostrander
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
I said
Okay,
Roanoke.
gotcha.
Yeah, okay.
Forget, I'm sorry.
So is Ostrander in this at all?
Not at
No.
all.
Okay.
Roanoke, I'm sorry.
Okay,
This man.
so there's about 4 buildings there.
So, Ostrander Avenue, we recaptured. They are no longer
Right.
a project. We recaptured them months ago
That's it.
and returned that money to the taxing jurisdictions.
That's it.
Because that
That's
property
what I
was
thought.
also sold and was not gonna be completed as the project that we had approved. Roanoke Avenue was the very first project.
Mhm.
It was a dilapidated vacant building. They did the Center of Excellence for pulmonary care.
Mhm.
And then they purchased an adjacent property, also with a building on it, and then they built another building. It was, A, B, and C buildings,
Mhm.
and that was phase two. Phase one's completed, phase two is, nearly complete, this is the last year, but because of the timing of the closing, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's very important for the school district to get the anticipated pilot payments versus, period. It's
When they-
important to get the pilot payments that they anticipate in our estimates.
Mhm.
And so, with this anticipated closing and changeover, they did not qualify, for a project to continue the benefits on behalf of the project that we had previously approved, nor did the new project qualify,
On its own.
as what we would consider an IDA project. Therefore, anticipating the closing, in discussions with the lawyers and the assessors, they're going to pay the pilot, and the assessment will be prorated when they take ownership. The new people take ownership, is that correct?
With a credit for
With
the
a credit,
pilot,
right.
pilot paid.
Did that,
And that Mr.
Confuse people
Yakubowski
more?
has negotiated that directly with the assessors.
correct,
Okay. So the school will get what they anticipate, and that's
From
the,
us,
and
yes.
the other taxing jurisdictions.
correct.
And then, moving forward, it'll be fully on the tax rolls.
Right,
With
and
the
it'll
new
be
owner.
terminated from us.
Right, and we won't have a
Which is
roll.
what the resolutions address.
And the reason there are two resolutions is because of the 2011
Phasing.
project and the
Mhm.
2015 project.
Right.
Because now it's one parcel, right?
One part.
And so what is the new use? Is it's still medical? It's just,
Optometrist office.
okay.
Yes, it's a conglomerate of doctors that came together for, optometry,
Okay.
There's no other wrinkles.
right? Not yet.
Stay tuned.
Okay, any further discussion?
No?
Let's consider the, number 49. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, that's approved. And we move on to consideration of published meeting notices.
No, we haven't.
Sorry, can you just do 49B also? I don't know if that, I did A and B. Or can you do just one resolution?
I think it was understood that they were doing both resolutions.
Okay, very good.
That's what I had in mind, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it as a joint.
So, who was that? Lori, did you motion? Who motioned?
That's fine.
I second it.
Okay,
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
sorry.
Okay. Carried. Now, we have approval of the post-published meeting notices, number 50, which is for the IDA meeting and the LDC meetings.
I'll make the
Okay.
motion.
I'll second.
Everyone, clear on the highlighted, there's a holiday in September, so we moved it to the following week. We
Yep.
added the extra March one in the event we need it for Paris approvals.
I think, go ahead, July. I think we should.
Oh, yes,
make
I put that in parentheses to discuss. Do you want it the 12th, or July 5th? It's, July 5th is the day after 4th of July, it's a Monday, so I didn't know if people were gonna be away and we should move it to the following week.
Hopefully they'll be able to be away.
Yeah, yeah,
I hope to be away.
so.
Yeah, we probably should move it away so we don't,
Yeah, I would
So
just.
move it to the 12th?
Yeah.
Well,
okay. So there's an amendment to that, business, and it's,
Thank you,
moving
Lori.
to the 12th of June? No,
July.
July. July, okay. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's done deal.
And just the final new business, if I could, Tom, I'd like to
Sure.
make a motion that we approve the amendments to the compliance reports
Yes.
that we discussed earlier and that we discussed in the governance committee, with the proviso that the formatting may or may not change, but we're going to look to see if we can change the format, but the content will, that's what we're recommending, that the new content be approved by the full board.
Have a second on that?
I'll second.
Any discussion further? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any other new business? Any business?
No.
Okay. Adjourn this meeting at, 5:48 PM. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. Tracy, you need any more stuff signed or?
We need the
Do
LDC.
we have one more meeting?
LDC?
Oh, the LDC. Okay, all right.
Wishful thinking.
No, it just slipped my mind. Oh, it must be in here. All right, the Economic Job Development Corporation, I'd like to call that meeting to order. The time is, 8:50, excuse me, 5:50 PM. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, need to adopt the proposed agenda, I need a motion.
Motion.
Second,
Second?
all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the agenda is approved. Now the minutes from the, September 14th and October 5th, 2020 meeting. Need a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Second?
any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are approved. Correspondence, there's still none.
None, sir.
Treasurer's report. Bob, you feel able to do it from your perch?
I think,
Jim?
Jim's
Okay.
got one-liner.
it was a one-liner, I think the balance in the LDC account at November 30th, 2020 was $506.23.
Okay. Make a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay. Go ahead.
Chairman, I think we typically transfer that money out, at the end of the year, and I failed to propose that resolution, so if we could take it off the floor to transfer the
Sure.
500 into the IDA account, regular operating account, that would be appreciated.
Want to do the 500 even or the 506?
I think 506.23. I don't know.
They won't close your account, will they, if you?
I think
don't
we
know
left
how-
$5 in, didn't we? Something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
think we left something.
Yeah, it was very minimal.
Do
Leave the
the
motion at
500.
Do
$500.
500.
Okay,
Transfer 500. Tony, okay with the motion?
Do up to 500, and then if it's more, you can,
okay, up
Do
to
less.
500, right,
Give me a second.
thank you.
All those in
Okay,
favor,
thank you.
aye?
aye.
Okay, that's approved.
Thank you.
Audit meeting. What's the audit meeting on this?
So, that is ministerial as well, to open up an audit, committee meeting to make recommendation for the engagement letters from the audit, which you read and approved for the IDA last. This is just ministerial. So we need to recess the regular meeting,
All right.
open an
Give me a
audit.
motion to recess the regular meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right, now let's open the audit meeting. Any motion?
I'm not on the committee.
Hmm?
I can't do it, I'm not on the committees.
Right.
who's on the committee.
Well, I can do it.
Yep, Tom? You
Uh,
motion,
I think you are.
Yeah,
and
I bring the
No,
motion
I
in a
thought it was
second.
finance. I don't
you're
know.
on finance. Bob and,
Oh.
Bob, can you, second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
5:52.
All right, so we're now in the Job Development Corporation meeting of the LDC.
Audit committee.
You're in the audit committee.
And the committee reviewed the engagement letters from,
Thank you.
the accountants, and I'm assuming they're gonna make recommendation to the regular board, to approve authorization and signing of the engagement letters.
So somebody give me a motion on this?
I'll
Make a motion.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
That's done.
Now just close it and then reopen.
I need a motion to close the audit committee meeting. Motion, please.
Bob Kern?
Tracy,
Second.
okay. All those in favor, aye?
Sorry, you guys are a little bit muffled, so it's a little tough to understand.
Yes.
That's at
Thank you, Rich.
5:53, and now we just need to reopen the, job development.
Motion to
corporation.
reopen the,
I'll make a motion to reopen.
Second.
all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. Now, that's it, we're ready to close this meeting, correct? No,
Approve the resolutions, right?
Open, no, we just opened up the meeting again,
yes,
and we need to go down to
business.
new business.
engagement letter.
Correct. Now it's a board vote for the engagement letters. And that's resolution 2120 in your packet.
Okay, give me a motion,
I'll make-
2120,
I'll make the motion.
second,
I'll second.
any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, and the next one is 2220, operation.
I'm assuming you want identical amendments?
Yes.
Yeah, we should have done it that way. Okay, give me a motion to, do the public meetings,
I'll do the motion.
second,
Second.
Second.
it'll be the same as, what we did with the change from
Mhm.
July. And the other, meetings, so, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. No more business?
No more business,
All
sir.
those in favor?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
5:55 PM.
Oh, I think we might have had a record.
Oh,
I
no.
thought Lou still held the record of 20 minutes.
Lou did, I think it was like a 3-minute meeting.